So today we're cutting tendons for the cross brace on our poor man's carpenter's bench. So we're going to use our Mortise Gage here. I've got it preset, and here's our cut line. And we'll just scribe along here. This is really convenient because we can mark all four sides real quickly. And we can double check our work here and see that this tenon is indeed exactly 3/4 of an inch. We'll even bring it down here the side. We'll mark all three sides. Put nice deep scratches in there so we can see them. The saw I've been using to cut these tendons is one that I just got. It was only $20. I bought it to cut dovetails. My first project on the bench is a really nice toolbox for my timber framing tools, a traditional grip, and I wanted to do dovetail corners on it, and so I got this to cut it. But having it here, it's got such a stiff back on it that it seems really good for this, and it's got fine teeth. So it might not be the right saw, but it works for me here. So what you can see right there, I'm laying that saw right in that cut. And these are really critical. I want to be careful and start slow because I don't want to jump out. I don't want to jump out of this and dig up this material right there, because as again it's gonna show on our bench. So we'll take our time, keeping even pressure here. Removing this waste wood on the top of the tenon here, there's a couple ways you could go about it, depending on how courageous you feel. One safe way is to do a knife fall here and to cut those out. I don't have a very good saw for that, to do that much ripping, so I'm going to chisel it. It also is going to depend on the grain. We're pretty far away from the heartwood. You know, it was up in here somewhere. So it's pretty straight grain, so it's pretty predictable. The thing that you got to be careful about is when you're splitting this, that it doesn't split down into that. So really be careful and watch it. So we'll start over here, and I'll just go halfway down just to test the waters here. See, that's real straight grain right there. See how the grains are running? That's splitting real nice. We're not going to have any trouble there, I don't think, unless we find a knot, but I don't see too much there. So we'll just go along here and keep working these out. What we got to do, we got to finish down to that line. That's our 3/4 line there. So we'll go a little bit closer. And this is where I'm going to start watching my chisel. Now, when you cut with your chisel, you know, you see the chisel's got a bevel on it. Sometimes you use it this way, but for the most part, when you really want control, you use it with the bevel down. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to steer the chisel. If it starts to dive down too deep, you simply just lay your hand down and it brings that tip back up. So you can just go along, just following that line carefully, adjusting your chisel, and get good results here. So you see right there, I want to go a little closer, so I'll raise it up to cut a little deeper, and then back down. Once we get the bulk of that waste chipped off, here's where our sharp chisel really comes into play. These little Stanley chisels have been really good. I've chopped all those mortises. I've worked with them for several days, really abused them. And here, watch this. If you're saying to yourself that's sharp, you would be 100% correct. So once we get this pared down pretty close like that, here's where we run into a real dilemma. How to get this tenon flat. Here we've got a little chisel, and little chisels, you know, they don't make large areas flat at all. It's got to be flat or it won't fit properly. And timber framing, that's where we'd use that big wide slick, that big 3.5 inch, 3-inch chisel to go across here, and it's nice and wide and just smooth and knock out all the high spots. But you know, kind of the poor man's workbench is about guys doing with basic tools, you know. So let's say you only have a 3/4 inch chisel. What do you do? So this is where I'm so excited to show this to you because it works so good. This is another Paul Sellers brilliant poor man's tool, a kind of an impromptu that is so effective. Well, let's take a look at it. Are you ready for it? Behold, the poor man's router. Not impressed? Wait till you see it work. What is this? We got just a chunk of 2x4 with a hole drilled in it. I don't know the angle, probably 25, close to 30 degrees, not quite, a little bit less than that, with a 1/4 inch chisel driven through and sticking out the end, right there. A chisel, this is my keen cutter that I put a wicked edge on it. It is so sharp. Mere polish there, you can see. So, what is this and how do we use it? Well, this is a poor man's router. This is a way that we can sharpen this or flatten this tenon to absolute precision. And I'll bring you down here and show you how it works. All right. Yeah, you can see it here already. So what we have here is our 2x4 is holding a consistent line on the flat part of our cross brace up here to cut this tenon. And the chisel is coming down there, is going to, as we move this back and forth, sweep it back and forth, is going to cut a perfectly flat area on here. So all we need to do is we need to adjust the blade on the chisel up and down until it's at the depth we want. So I'll bring it along here, and we've got our knife walls, right? We've got our knife walls cut here, and we'll check and see the height. That's the height we want. This is where I had it set at the other one, so I know it's pretty close. So what we'll do is we start cutting. Now right there, you can see I'm just skimming there. I got a little closer than I should have with my chisel, but we're a little bit high right there where the poor man's router, I think that's what Paul calls it, is working a little bit hard. So we'll just take and we'll just pare this down just a little bit with our chisel. I can see right there, got a lot of material left there between the line. We don't want to use our poor man's chisel you know, to hog out a bunch of wood. It's not designed for that. It doesn't work very well at that. We want it just doing that last bit of that little finishing touch here. But man, it works good, and you'll see when I fit these to the mortises how good they are. And even there, right there, you see we're taking a little bit more material than we should. Let's pare a little bit more off here. There we go. See how it's see that shaving there? Now I don't know if a 1/4 inch chisel is ideal for the poor man's router, but it sure seems to work good. You know, it's just, routers take a lot of skill to use. They're so gnarly and they get away from you so quick, and you got to build a jig for them. You really do need, you can't free hold a router, nobody can. You got to build a jig, and that stuff takes so much time to do. Even to do something like this, it won't work because it won't extend that far. You know, it starts to tip, and then you ruin your tenon. Where this is, it sets up so quick. You go along there and just double check everything. Make sure we're right along the back of the knife wall there. And right there, we are cut right down to our line where we've got a nice flat surface there. It's just fantastic. Now, one thing I want to point out to you here is when you're setting the depth on your poor man's router, obviously if you want to go deeper, you can just gently tap on the chisel. And what I did is, this is a 1/2 inch chisel, not a 1/4 inch chisel. I drilled a 7/16 hole. It was one size smaller than the chisel, and I just lightly tapped it in there, and it seems to hold just fine. It hasn't backed out on me, or it hasn't moved. I took a pair of a crescent wrench, because it was a little bit crooked, and it looks like maybe it still is, and twisted it just a little bit. But it works really, really good. Now, if you want to go shallower, you know, it can be hard to pull this out. Don't hit your chisel with a hammer. You never want to do that. Just like on an axe, you know, when we set an axe head, we strike the bottom of the handle. Boy, everything is reversed here, and I can't figure it out. There we go. So when you want it to be shallower, you just strike real hard. Just give a good firm tap on the 2x4, and what that will do is that will drive that 2x4 down, and you'll be a little bit shallower. That works out really good. So let's flip it over and do the other side. Poor man's router. Can you believe that? How beautiful is that? It's one of those things. Why didn't I think of that? That's just, I mean, I've done a lot of these before, and I've always really struggled with them, you know. And look at that. Right there, you can see. There's our knife wall. You know, you can just see right there. And it's flat and it's smooth. It's brilliant. And that, you know, the thing about it is I was really careful with my dimensions, and so I haven't had to reset the router. You know, I've just used it on each piece. You know, so that speeds things up really, really fast. So there we have that tenon cut there, one side in just no time. So let's go do the other side, and then we'll see about fitting the frame. You know, on second thought, before we cut that other tenon, let's put our little bevel on here. We want a little chamfer on here on all four sides, so that when we put the tenon through the mortise, it doesn't catch on something and break and crack the wood. So we can just take our little plane here and just run a little chamfer on there. Now again, we don't want to go beyond. We don't want that blade running beyond all the way to the corner where it'll break off those unsupported fibers. So just make sure you come back like that. Just, it doesn't take much there. We can do the bottom while we're here too. 45-degree angle or whatever you like. You can do that with a chisel as well. I did the other one with the chisel. You know, we can knock these corners off. Same way, you know, we've got those fibers. There's nothing on the back side, nothing from keeping them from tearing out, so we want to always be sure and cut into them. So you can easily do this with the chisel as well. Just take your time and run that along there. coming from the back side. So let's see how our poor man's router did here. See how our fit is. Nice and tight. I think I can get it through there no problem with a mallet. I'm not going to force it now because I've got to glue it back in, but that is a good fit. That is a very good fit.